Welcome everybody to PinstripeChronicles podcast. I'm Tats. I'm here with Donald and Rob, and today we are going to be talking about Aaron Judge and the idea that he is willing to go into free agency. He does want to have he's hoping to have a contract extension before the season starts, which we know is not realistic, especially with everything else going on with the lockout and how it's going to be a free agency rush. Try to get all the rosters together, have a quick spring training, and make opening day on time on March 31st. The Judge is really not – I don't see Judge being Cashman's top priority before opening day. Do you think that Aaron Judge has merited having a decent contract? Or what kind of contract do you think the Yankees should give him, being his history on the field and with the injury problems combined?
Face of the franchise, so yeah, you kind of either you pay him or you're gonna let him walk. But if you choose to let him walk, you better get something for him. That's all I know. You can't let a player of that caliber go. A lot of the injury history is, I mean, one of the things was like he got hit in the wrist, and everyone's saying he's injury prone because of that. So like,
diving for the ball was another injury. Yeah,
right. So, like a couple of the things could have been avoided. And they weren't necessarily his body breaking down on him like people think. When he's on the field, he's top 5 player in baseball. So he deserves to be paid as such. This idea that his body's just going to stop working after like 3 years is ridiculous to me, because that's apparently what I think John Heyman was saying. Like, he's going to be a DH in 4 years. Like,
how can that?
Nobody knows, right? You can't tell the future. So if you're going based off of what he's done for us, I mean, look, last year without him and without Stanton, we don't sniff the postseason. So that alone is deserving of pretty decent money. In 2017, he was by far our best player. When he's on the field, he's by far our best player. So yeah, pay him.
I hope what's happened to my Aaron Judge bobblehead I've got over here is the precursor of the contract to come. His hand fell off, and his head is spinning around like Linda Blair from The Exorcist. So I'm slightly concerned about that. I got this bobblehead from Star Wars Day at a Yankee game against Cleveland a couple of years ago. And I don't know. I was like, I'm going to get the Aaron Judge bobblehead for today's show. And the things just started to fall apart. So I'm slightly concerned about that. But I don't believe in precursors. Well, that's actually not true, as his hand fell off again. That's not good. Okay, so moving back
if
on.
Aaron Judge goes on the IL, it's your fault.
It is my fault. It's like a voodoo doll. He's now beheaded. So I'm off the air. You might need to help me glue this thing back together again. Okay, so Aaron Judge, my good viewers and loyal listeners, you'd be looking at a 9-figure contract for Aaron Judge. He's the figure of the franchise. He's the face of the franchise. You kind of have to look at it, giving him a contract. So interestingly, John Heyman sounded a bit dubious about the Yankees' interest in going major years for Aaron Judge. But then Bob Klapisch had the opposite take, saying, don't worry, like, this thing's going to get done. Did you guys listen to Aaron Judge on the R2C2 podcast?
I haven't, but I heard clips of it.
Yeah, so kind of sounds like he's kind of putting the ball in the Yankees' court. Is this kind of like saying, hey, we need to get this thing done prior to the season starting? It sounded like he was giving them a deadline that this thing needs to get done prior to the season starting. But considering what the Yankees need to do, which is a lot of heavy lifting, there's about 100 free agents that's on the market now. Yeah. So as soon as we're given the go-ahead, it's going to be a mad scramble. It's going to be like a supermarket sweep, right, for free agents. So do the Yankees have enough to get shortstop, center field, first base, blah, 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 rebuild the thing, get everybody ready for spring training, then negotiate one of the biggest, most important contracts for our face of the franchise? I mean, we're talking a contract which has the ramifications of a Derek Jeter contract because of the amount of fans that are invested in this type of deal. The Yankees have to be smart about this. If it gets to the point where they're remember when they asked Derek Jeter to test free agency, that upset Jeter, upset his agent, and upset the Yankee fan base. And that's what you have to watch out for, because Aaron Judge is held not to a similar esteem, but close, because the modern generation absolutely identifies with Aaron Judge. They absolutely adore the man. He is the face of the franchise. He sells seats. There's the judges' chambers, all these things. You are risking a lot if you annoy him. So you don't want to do that. But then the Yankees also have to think about the other side of the coin. You can't just give him a blank check, because he's climbing in years now. A lot of that has to do with the way this arbitration works in modern baseball. I know they're going to be changing that, but at the age of 30, he's still not had his proper contract yet, which is kind of crazy to me, considering he's had 2 semi-MVP seasons already as a Yankee. So he is well worth his contract. What indeed that contract will be, I think we should discuss next. What do you guys think?
I think the fact that he's going to be 31, right, and is going to be looking for a long 30, 31, whatever his age is going to be, is going, as he's getting his first, what's upsetting is, and this is going to be his first official contract. He's made money and all with the arbitration negotiations and all that. So I think that that's going to hurt him. Especially that everybody wants to scream to get younger, look, and with all the, everything that his body has been through to this point, I think that's going to waver in favor of the negotiations on Brian Cashman's end. I think he's going to try to lowball him. If you want to, you're not, he's not going to get, a 10-year deal. They're not going to sign until he's 41. I think what they're going to try to do is go high value, moderate years. So he might get a 6 or 7 year contract. I think he was going to make money in the 30 range. I think the way that the Yankees can counter it, I know it's going to hit with the salary cap, not the luxury threshold, because they do treat it like a cap, the Yankees. And we don't know what the new number is going to be, so that's a fact. There's so many different variables that come into play here, and the fact that the Yankees they don't have to worry. It's not like, well, if we don't get it done by opening day, we lose him for the year. They can still work with him throughout the year. And it's up to that. Now that puts the ball back in Aaron Judge's court, saying, all right, let's just figure out what we're going to do. Let's just get the season going, and then we will get everything worked out for you. We'll give us by the All-Star break to work something out.
But Tats, just to intervene, remember that the Yankees have a policy not to negotiate contracts mid-season. They basically held firm on that.
There's an exception to every rule, and I think when you look at, like what Rob was saying, with the marketability of Aaron Judge and the popularity amongst the fans, I think that makes him the exception to that rule. Every team has that player that you bend a little bit for because of their value to the franchise. Aaron Judge is that player.
Yeah, but you don't want to have contract negotiations going through the season, because that could affect the player. Yeah. He might not think it could, but he's going to be 30 in April. So if you give him 8 years, maybe even 9. I don't care if he's pushing 40 by the end of his contract. It's the same thing we talked about with Correa, and the same thing we're talking about with Cole. If the first half of that contract, let's say 5 to 6 years, he's still playing at this kind of level, in the last few years, he's getting older and you have to DH him. At that point, Stanton's gone, and then you don't have to worry about having the 2 DHs that John Heyman says you're going to have in 3 years. So it's not as big of an issue as people think. He's not ancient, 30 is not old. It's not young, but it's not like he's going to be in a stretcher by the end of the season. It's not like he's on a walker, let's be honest here. He's probably going to get 7 at the 6 or 7 at the minimum.
Yeah.
He won't get 10. I don't think anyone would give him 10, but 8 years. And like you said, he could be getting a lot more in terms of average salary. So yeah, you're looking at a big contract to bring him back, but he one player is going to make you that money back. Like you look at the stadium. How many 99 jerseys and shirts are in that stadium? Mm-hmm. That right there alone, it's not Jeter level, but it's close. Like when was the last player we talked about that was like, this guy should be the captain? If we didn't have Derek Jeter, who was that player?
Yeah.
Even when Jeter was there, was it A-Rod? No. Like who wanted A-Rod to be captain? Nobody. So like post Jeter, you're looking at who's that leader, who's the captain. He checks off all the boxes. He's the captain of this team. He is the face of this franchise. And if you let him walk for nothing, then you're putting a very bad taste in every fan's mouth there. It's like you're going to let him walk, but you were going to go ahead and give Justin Verlander $25 million to pitch for one season. It doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Like you have to pay Aaron Judge.
No, giving Judge a contract is good for business. And the Yankees, if they don't see that, then they really have a problem. And I think they do recognize that he's a player that they need to hold on to. You don't want a player like him going into free agency because we have a new owner right next door that's got a deep pocket. And, for a player with star power like Judge on the market, Cohen would not hesitate to outbid the Yankees any way they can.
Oh, yeah.
And do we really want to see him in Queens? No, I don't. If he's going to stay in New York, I'd rather him in the Bronx.
Well,
that was my very next point.
California. I think he'd go to California if he left. He'd go back
home.
Yeah, like San Francisco, maybe even the Dodgers. He'd be a monster with San Diego or even the Angels. Imagine him in the same lineup as Ohtani and Trout.
Don't see him being in the Angels, but San Francisco, a big pockets.
Yeah.
They would love to have him firing balls out into the ocean. So yeah, that's not into the bay. So yeah, I could see that, but Cohen would love to get another thing open over on the Yankees. Let's look at the way he's operating. You know what I mean? He's brought in Buck Showalter, who's basically been one of our beloved managers of the Yankees. He's brought him in. He's spending hand over fist to bring in the best pitcher on the market, probably the best pitcher in baseball outside of DeGrom. So the Mets are making headlines, and the Yankees don't do that anymore. So if the Yankees allowed Judge to enter free agency, the Mets would be right there in a heartbeat to offer him whatever the heck it would take to send him over to Queens. So yeah, I mean, listen, that is a very serious concern. If Cohen wasn't in charge of the Mets, I wouldn't be overly concerned about the Yankees having him test the market. But now they kind of have to. There's not really now there's somebody that's willing to spend more than the Yankees, and that's something that's has to be something quite concerning, business wise, as you guys say. It's all about business, really. So in that respect, I think you kind of have to consider maybe going a little bit over what I would be comfortable with, because in my opinion, at 30, with his injury history, even though it's not necessarily muscle injury, it's still injuries. At the age of 30, do I really want him long term? I'd say no. I wouldn't go any more than 6. I would say any more than 6, and you're really pushing it at this stage, because there's also other negotiations that'll be happening as well. Because we've got Stanton; he's going to be here for a number of years. Well, hopefully, because unless the Yankees trade him, which I don't think they'd want to at this stage, because actually his contract's very reasonable now for somebody that for his productivity. We're only paying him like 20 odd million for his productivity. That's actually a bargain. So you don't really want to trade Stanton. Aaron Judge, he'll be looking for what 30, 35 per. So I wouldn't want to go much over 6, because if he's in the 38 range, he's around about 38 years old, 39, and we're paying him upwards of 35, 40. It's going to look really ugly and that towards the end of that contract. So I would stay in the 6-year range. I think it's similar to the length of contract we gave to DJ LeMahieu. I would say 7 is really pushing it. 5, I'd be really delighted with. 6 would be my cutoff point for that. And that's probably the point. If any more than 6, I'd probably ask him to test free agency, in my opinion, because I don't want to be paying him at 37 years old.
Yeah, it's, if you're signing him until he's like 37, it's normally not a stretch. At 37, athletes can still perform to a high level. But you also take into account of his size, and how he's going to age. That's also a big factor. And so that's why I'm saying if it's 6, I would say between 5 to 7 years, I would really be comfortable with. But no more than 7. You can't have him going into his 38th his year 38. I think that would be a mistake.
Would that 1 year really make that much of a difference though? I don't.
If it takes that one more year to keep him, you take it. You give it to him. You start with, like what Donald said, start negotiations with a 5-year deal with a high AAV, and see if you can get him to bite that. If he's looking for more long term, then you start playing with the annual salary, saying, all right, we were going to give you 35. If you want the extra year, now it's going to be 33 years. 33 million a year.
Maybe a team option. I would have a team option.
Bring it down as the years go. As the years decrease the annual.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense, actually. Yeah, and maybe have it as a team option that final year, so the Yankees can decide whether to opt into it or not. That at least gives us a little bit.
Or
of leverage.
Another option they can have, because of his, the star power and the numbers that he can put up. All right, so that 7th and 8th year, right? We're gonna, the first 6 years we're gonna pay you 35. All right, let's just use that as a number. Year 7 it will be 33 million. Year 8 will be 30. But in those 2 years, put in milestone incentives.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, why not? Go for it.
Yeah.
If that's what gets it done, you have to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, without a lockout, we probably would have known our roster by now. We probably would have Aaron Judge locked up for the rest of his career. I think, like we said, he's going to be approaching 30. He's going to be 30. He's going to be going into free agency as a 30-year-old. He's going to want probably one free agency deal. It's going to pay him a lot of money, and he'll be set for the rest of his life in terms of his baseball contract and endorsements and all that stuff. So he's going to want one contract, and I want him to be a Yankee lifer. Look, it's rare. We talk about the Yankees they don't bring up their players very well. They're a homegrown talent. This is one guy. This is one of the few guys that they've brought up from their system that has become a legitimate superstar in the blink of an eye. Yeah. And you can't let that walk away. This is this current generation's Jeter, right? We grew up with Jeter. You can never see him play in another jersey. You can't see Aaron Judge in another jersey. But talking about Stan for a second, they could look to move him in a couple of years. If he's still playing like this in like 2 years, someone's going to think about picking him up. If the Yankees need some money.
Yeah.
Maybe.
which should never be the case. The Yankees should never be needing money, but I know what you're saying. Aaron Judge is non-tradable, in my opinion. I wouldn't make him captain though, because that's my next question. If he requested the captaincy, would you give it to him?
That's a hard one. I like that the idea that of having the team captain. It's not necessary. It's not a necessity in sports. We all have there's multiple team leaders. You can make the argument for Cole to be the captain. With his leadership and how he gets everybody. Especially when he was working with the pitching staff, we were saying all last year, who's managing the team? Who's managing the pitching staff? Is it Boone or is it Cole? So I think that I like the notion that the Yankees keep that captain role alive in baseball. I think that it's that kind of nostalgic, kind of tip of the cap to that player that says, we see what you can do. And it's not like it comes with any extra money. So it's kind of like, there's no financial commitments attached to it. Mm-hmm. So I could see making him it wouldn't bother me if they made him a captain. But do we still, do we need to have that Yankee captain anymore? Is anybody going to be able to fill the shoes of the captains before them?
Would you mean that he'd be an unofficial captain?
He kind of already is. Him and Cole, really. I think the two of them together. I think they unofficially, take that captain, and that leadership very seriously. The same way we saw it with Sabathia, and even with Gardner. They lived and breathed the ways of the pinstripes, and the prestige of it. And they never got that recognition of being even thought of as a captain, outside of just a couple of circles. So that's kind of what made me kind of get on the idea of, do we need a captain anymore? Is Jeter the last captain that we're really going to have?
So you're on board with that. Rob, what do you think, bro?
I mean, no one thought they'd name another captain after Mattingly, and then Jeter came along, and rightfully so. They gave it to him. He's already the captain without it being named. Like we talked about it last year with Torres, right? When he didn't run out the ground out, who was the person that was getting into his ear? It wasn't Aaron Boone. It wasn't Garrett Cole. It was Aaron Judge. You see it every game. He's the one, and you look at the way he is in the locker room. I know people get mad about the boombox thing and all that, but this is a different age. Everyone says we want the Yankees to have a little more, a little more flair and a little more fun, and he does a couple of those things, and they get mad. But whatever.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the Yankees are too businesslike, and then they show a fun side to them, and kind of
Jeter would never, right? Yeah. That's when it comes, because Jeter would never. So you really, which one is it? We know Jeter would never do that, but look at the way they are in post-game interviews. They're very similar with how they answer. Aaron Judge, he picks his words. He's like, he always thinks before he speaks. He's like, well, and then he gives you his answer, and you're like, he answered it. He handles the media perfectly. He handles New York perfect. That's always the question. Can you handle New York? He did it within 10 minutes. He handled New York. He's the captain. Give it to him. Why not? And if you give it to him, that means you've locked him up for the rest of his career. So give him the contract, name him the captain, get it over with.
It's funny is
going all in.
It's funny is you hear the argument about with the captainship. Well, to be, when is Aaron Judge going to deliver us a championship? That's when he'll get his. That's when we'll make him captain. Let him bring the title back home and all that. And my argument to that would be, where is Mattingly's World Series?
Thank you.
It's not how they win the championship. It's how they carry themselves in that uniform and how they lead their team. That's a captain. So I think you can't use the championship argument because then you would say that Mattingly should have never been a captain. And we all know what he did in that clubhouse and what he meant to that team and what he meant to the fans. You know, he's the reason I am a Yankee fan, you know, was Mattingly. So, and a lot of fans, young fans, got on board because of Judge, you know, and all the aura around him, the rookie of the year. He should have been the MVP if it wasn't for a cheater. And it was, you know, the judges' chambers and all the little kids with the gavels and the, you know, and the wigs. You know, it brought fun back to the stadium. It gave the kids something to want to see. That's, you know, that's got to be taken into account. And as far as with the captainship and of course the salary and the contract.
Well, I'm going to take the other view. I don't think anybody should be a captain after Derek Jeter. I think Jeter being called the captain, I think it should be a nod to remain that title. I mean, listen, if Aaron Judge can continue on this path, then I'd reconsider. But as of right now, I don't think he's earned that title just yet, because remember, he's not inheriting the title from Mattingly. He's inheriting it from Derek Jeter, who's one of the greatest players of all time, who's now multiple champion. And he was just the face of the Yankees over, well, since 1996, right up to when he retired. And he's one of the greatest shortstops to ever walk the earth and greatest Yankees to ever walk the earth. I think to inherit that title, you have to do a little bit more than Aaron Judge has done. Aaron Judge can be the unofficial captain. That is fine. I don't have a problem with that, because that's basically what he's doing anyway. As you say, when it's time to hold people to account, Aaron Judge is the one that's doing that, not Aaron Boone. So you'd certainly expect that to continue. Aaron Judge has handled New York beautifully, as Rob says, and he's represented the Pinstripes perfectly. There is not even one bad story you'd ever hear about Aaron Judge. He's just represents the Pinstripes perfectly, the way it should be. So it's not a critique on him. I just think that if you want to start throwing around that kind of title, remember, we've only had a very limited number of captains in our history. And we've had people just as good as Aaron Judge that haven't been given, and just as good leaders as Aaron Judge over these years that haven't been given that title. So I want to hold off on that. I would say Derek Jeter is the captain. I think that's just the way he is. That's the name that you get. And I think you need to earn a little bit more than that. So I'm against giving him that title. I would feel very uncomfortable with that. I don't really care that he sells all the jerseys and he has judges' chambers and stuff. That's just kind of a fun thing that people need to identify with modern baseball. I don't think that necessarily means that he deserves that title. And also, yeah, I actually do have a problem with that stuff with the boombox. Shows a level of immaturity that I would not expect from the captain, because all it does is it just opens up us to getting trolled. And it's come back to bite us a number of times now, twice now, actually, with the Red Sox. And that's just something that a Derek Jeter would never do. And,
yeah, but
and I know you ripped that, but that's actually true, though. Derek Jeter would never, because he's smarter than that. And you also need to remember, the Yankees seem to celebrate very little things, very small things, like, a second wild card berth. They're going nuts, champagne celebrations. The Yankees wouldn't celebrate until they make it to a World Series. I know it's a different era, but I don't think that the expectations should change. And I don't think my captain's expectations should change. So, yeah, you can rip me for being old school. No, I don't care. I'm an old fart. I don't care. But that's just the way I hold the Yankees. That's the esteem I hold the Yankees. And I don't believe anybody should be the captain after Derek Jeter.
No, and you could be disagreed with, but they can't trash you for your opinion, because at least you're coming with your opinion with a legitimate reason.
He's not allowed to disagree.
I don't think you should be the captain, and that's the end of it.
He's not allowed to disagree with me. We're supposed to agree on everything.
That's right. That's right.
Come on, Tats. God, you got to get with the program here, man.
But what was I saying? So I think the fact that when you the whole thing with the boombox. It was such a small thing. It really, in the beginning, Donald, I was right there with you. I thought it was very immature. It was, this is not how the Yankees act. But on the other side of the coin is we want to see them having fun, especially if they were able to get, aggravate the Red Sox so much that they couldn't get that series back on track. And if we would have won the series, it would have been like, oh, haven't Judge gotten to their head? What, give him a 12-year contract right now. They would have been kissing his ass so quick. But because it did, if it doesn't work, doesn't mean it was a bad idea.
Yes, it is. Because when you talk like that, all it does is it opens you up to getting trolled in the other direction. It just reminds me of when the Jets came into New York, I believe, and it was when the Giants went on that run to win the Super Bowl, and the Jets covered up all the Giants Super Bowl trophies, and we're like, this is our town. The covered up all the Super Bowl memorabilia, and they're like, oh, this is our town. The town's green, blah, 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 blah. And the Giants were like, Tom Coughlin goes, winners, you guys are winners, but you guys keep your mouth shut. You do your talking on the field, and then you can gloat afterwards when we do beat their asses. And that's what you do. You keep your mouth shut because you don't want to open yourself up to trolling. The Giants kept their mouths shut, and they're like, okay, hey, all right, if that's what you feel it. Then the Giants beat their asses. Then they went on to win the Super Bowl, and then we're like, this is actually our town, guys. And that's what you need to remember. You need to keep your mouth shut, and then you win. Then you can gloat your asses off. But until then you just open yourself up to getting trolled. So it was actually a terrible idea because there's numerous examples throughout sports where you say something that all it does is ends up in the opposition locker room, right in bold headlines to rev up the opposition team. And that's kind of what they did. They just basically opened themselves up to getting trolled. And this whole thing about, the Yankees just want to have fun. Well, that's the reason why Aaron Boone's the manager. And that's partly the reason why this team's been falling apart, because they're not really that focused on winning. It just seems to be this, let's have fun. Let's all have a nice atmosphere in the clubhouse. Oh, we just want to be nice to everybody in this nice, cheery atmosphere. Well, that's not really complicit to winning.
I don't think having fun means you can't have some character. It's not like, I'm not trying to say I want everyone to be nice to each other, but how many times did we watch the Yankees, in the 90s, and as good as they were, they just kind of sat there. I don't care if you're handling your business. I get it, but you don't have to be like, we're better than you. I'm not saying that's what the 90s Yankees did, because we knew they were better than everybody else. Like, that's just how the team was built. They knew they were better, but like, show a little bit of character. It's a different sport than it was back then. You see a lot of other teams that when they are winning and they're having fun in the dugout, you want to see that as a fan. You're like, hey, it looks like they're having fun. That's a good thing, because even if I'm not saying when you're losing, the whole Luke Voigt thing last year, that pissed me off too. When we were getting our asses kicked and he's in there going, ugh. So yeah, that was dumb. But I'm saying, like, you don't want to just see the team at all times just kind of standing around milling about being Aaron Boone, right? Because Aaron Boone just sitting on the top step chewing gum. If the whole team's doing that, you're like, guys, you're up 10-2 right now. Have a little fun in the dugout. So I want to see a little character, and it's different, because remember in 2009 when we got Burnett and Swisher and we had Damon in the locker, things seemed different, and the team was winning and they were enjoying themselves. It was different than what we were used to, and they still had that mix. You still had Jeter was kind of like, all right, guys, it's business as usual, but hey, we're winning. Go do your thing. That's what it was. And I think Judge is that guy. He can mix the two. He's serious when he needs to be, but he's going to have some fun too.
Well, yeah, the whole thumbs down thing was actually quite good. I quite like that, because that was quite of a fun thing that the Yankees used. And there was a good camaraderie that year. So that's when you can kind of mix a fun aspect but win, because that's what they were doing. I mean, a lot of it was a rallying cry to win. But what they're doing now is kind of what my point is kind of the opposite. It's just they're just kind of lighthearted for the sake of being lighthearted, and it's not really being delivered on the field. So it's a fine line. I'm just very much in the point of view where yeah, you can have fun like the Red Sox team that beat us up, the idiots team. You know what I mean? You can have that kind of fun as long as it's a rallying cry to winning. It's just I'm just seeing fun and not really seeing winning right now. So that's just something that you have to tread very lightly. You can tread it very well. There's a very fine line. You need a
So
really good manager to manage that locker room to the right level of fun plus hard work. And that's what we're getting wrong for the last
so the
couple of years.
championship drought has just sucked the fun out of you. Is that what you're
Absolutely.
saying? Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, when you're winning, everything looks better when you're winning. Everything looks its worse when you're losing, So it's very hard to say, we were screaming last year. We want to see more fun, and we were seeing it, but we didn't see the winning that went with it, which made all the gimmick stuff grow old very fast. So maybe if the Yankees do get on a good run for a month and they have some fun with it, hopefully that'll bring you back to enjoying the entertainment part of the sport, not just the competitive part. And that's where that's where it comes down to a balance.
Yeah, I mean, they've tried to do that before. Remember the Dirty Mustache Squad? They had some fun with that, and then once it stopped, it lost its luster. They got rid of them. It was gone. I think it was like a month and a half. They were winning. Like, wow, this is a good luck charm, and everyone just looked
ridiculous.
Odd, but yeah. But little things like that. I'm not saying that when you make it 10-2, you're still losing. I want to see the guys doing the Gardner thing in the dugout. I don't want to see that. I'm just saying if you're winning and you're going on a nice little streak, yeah, it's okay to show a little flair. But when it comes down to getting business done, you still got to be serious. And there are certain players that certainly need to do that more than others. But if we're keeping this about Aaron Judge,
yeah,
he's the guy that I'm almost certain on this roster. It's like him and Stanton and Cole, are the guys that can mix in the two. Because we've seen Cole having so much fun, but then the second he flips that switch, it's like, okay, I'm going to go rip your head off. And the same thing with Judge. He can be the same way, and the same for Stanton. CeCe was like that too. CeCe was another guy you can say was an unofficial captain.
Yep. That's why
I'm glad you mentioned Stanton, because Stanton doesn't get enough credit, man. Stanton's a very quiet leader. I think he's grown into that role. He's handled New York just perfectly. I know enough has been said about Stanton. He's getting an unfair criticism from Yankee fans. I never understood it. They just basically didn't like him because he's not a Yankee prospect.
Yeah, well, it's also so he strikes out a lot. So does 80% of the freaking baseball players in the league.
But his batting average is actually very decent, very representative, man. I mean, the Yankees are favorite, Brian Cashman's favorite player is Joey Gallo when he bats 140. So Stanton's consistently in the 270s. He's a very good hitter, and he's just locked in. When he's locked in, there's actually not anybody better. Aaron Judge can't touch Stanton when Stanton is hot. When Stanton's hot, Stanton is on another level than everybody. Like his contact is insane. It's untouchable. It's like a rocket coming off his bat when he's locked in. And and he just does it in a very quiet way. He just gets on with it. Just this quiet, steely determination that he's going to rip your head off. But he does it in a very classy, just keeps his mouth shut, just gets on with it. He doesn't thumbs down the fans like Julius Randle does, for the Knicks. He doesn't get all wrapped up in himself. Just turns up, wins, and goes home. That's all I'm asking him. That's all I'm asking any Yankee to do, really.
Yep. All right, that's gonna wrap up our chat today. Just remember, comment below and reach out to us on social media. Let us know what you think about the Judge contract. What do you think about the antics and having fun in the dugout and in the locker room? And what do you think about the captainship? Should the Yankees continue to keep the captain alive and award another player a captain's role? And just what you think overall. And what do you think about Stanton? Just give us it's just been. I need a vacation again. So
your just mind just gave
like,
up there,
share,
man. You're just
comment,
like,
subscribe. Check us out.
ah.
Sportname.com/player. Check us out on Northeast Streaming Sports on Roku. Remember, wear your pinstripe,
Oh, dear.
subscribe, play hard, and don't let me talk so much.